with just 16 guys?
Yeah, no, it's a different experience, and you think before COVID, rookie mini camp was like 50 guys because you had like 30 tryout guys, you had the 20 draft picks, and you were playing 11 on 11, without pads and running power at the 5-yard line, and how things have changed for the right reasons, So the whole point of this right now is just get them acclimated, for Monday. So it's not their first time when the vets all get here where they can get in at the back of the line, and it's not their first time doing it. And then really they only have a week after that. So you got tomorrow, you got 4 more days. We'll be able to keep them next Friday from a training standpoint, not doing anything on the field to get them ready for practice on Monday, because when we go, we go.
Does it feel weird for you running a full practice for the first time? I guess, what was that process like, and kind of building out exactly how you were going to do all these things?
Well, that's, per the point, there were 16 guys out there, so to call that a practice is more like field work and all that. But, the last few weeks of phase 2, and then we had that voluntary mini camp as well, where we had, 70 or so guys out there. So that kind of felt more like the practice and all that. So, no, hey, ball's ball. We're out there, and just trying to get these guys better.
How do you feel like guys are acclimating so far?
You're talking the rookies, or are you talking? Yeah, again, just their first time out there, right? It's the guys that came back 5 weeks ago had, they know what to expect. So they're training somewhat for football, but they're still off doing their own thing. Some guys were here. Then you have a few weeks of phase 1 where we're not doing field work, and then we get them onto the field where we're getting them ready for the OTAs and the practice. These guys, with the draft process and all the different stuff that they're doing in the travel and the 30 visits, you have no idea where they're going to be. From what I saw out there, everyone made it. I didn't see anyone on the ground or anything like that. So we'll reassess, we'll get with the guys and see where everyone was at, and then we'll have a very similar day tomorrow.
You talk about the draft process, when that's happening and you're thinking, okay, if we can get this guy, that'd be great. Then you draft him and you start thinking, oh man, now that we have this guy, we can do this. And then to finally, like you said, get him on the field. What's that excitement level like? Is it like a kid on Christmas morning when you play?
it's you just want to see what they can do in person. You're watching these guys, particularly from a coaching standpoint, outside of maybe if you're at the combine. Most people aren't going to pro days anymore. It's kind of the first time you've seen them live in person. The scouts, Monty, obviously they've seen some guys just the way that they're, that they do their thing in the fall. So it's good. There was a few guys out there that you're like, oh, I didn't know that was part of their game. Again, they're in t-shirts and shorts though too, right? It's a way to just get them acclimated with what we're going to do schematically, what we're going to ask them to do physically, so that they get ready in a week.
We talked before about how this is the time of year for just getting the basics down pat. With the young quarterback coming out of college, I know a lot when it comes to the snap count, a lot of teams just do the clap. Obviously, that's not a thing in the NFL. From your conversations and experiences with other younger quarterbacks, what kind of goes into developing that snap count?
Well, that's crucial. We spent a week here with the vets before we even, on offense, before we even introduced a play. All we did was talk about pre-snap operation, and the first thing that you talk about outside of the huddle is the snap count. And so, let alone a rookie who maybe been doing the clap, maybe hasn't been under center. A good thing about the guy that we have in Carson is he, at least from a schematic standpoint, had NFL philosophies, if you will, NFL, scheme from some standpoint. So the cadence, it'll be interesting today. Again, we weren't out there doing 11 on 11, so he's learning the cadence. He's understanding how important the cadence is. But he's going to have to go out there and do it when we get everyone there.
Everything's can it be a weapon? Because that was something Carson was talking about yesterday, how he's eager to practice it because he knows it can be a weapon.
It's a massive weapon. People that know how to use it, that's what D-line, think about what D-line do, right? They're literally just trying to penetrate the gap and make plays, and there's different techniques, all that, but I get it's not as simple as that, but if they're picking up on cadence, man, it's, what a disadvantage for us. That's the advantage we have on offense is we know when it's going to be snapped, but we have to be able to use that as a weapon. We have to be able to change it up, and do all the things. And then from a quarterback standpoint, how can they all sound the same? Whoever ends up being the starting quarterback, you want all those other quarterbacks to mimic that cadence as much as possible.
You said that you spent a week working with the guys on the pre-snap operation, which aligns with what you said a few months ago about the most important thing you learned from Sean McVay being the pre-snap operation. What do you spend a week with those guys working on? What are all the things that just seems like so long to spend on that kind of stuff? But what are all the things you can actually work on?
Yeah, no, it does seem long, and it'll never change ever again. In a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, hopefully we're here for 50 years, we're going to be doing the same thing. That first week will always be the foundation. We'll always reset it, and always try to improve it, So, I mean, there's so much. Again, we're not going to skip steps. And for this year, because it was year one, I mean, it was the first time they were hearing the way we're going to call our cadences. And the way we're calling our cadences is different than LA. We're going to make it our cadences. And just like I'm sure Sean's doing with his, I'm sure there's going to be some tweaks to what they did to try to improve it, So you talk about that. You talk about the formations, the motions, our tempo, our urgency and all that, all the stuff that we're going to do before the snap. And again, I've said it like this, and I think you guys can all probably attest to it. You can see the teams that are crisp and tight and the teams that aren't. It's not that hard to see, and we're working to be one of those. We got a long way to go.
There's a thought out there with running backs that maybe they can make an impact faster because there's not as much to learn or whatever it is. Is that a fair assessment? And with where Jeremiah is in terms of, I mean, it's brand new and he's just starting, but is there a lot for him to learn, or can he jump in fairly quick?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's semi-fair to say in terms of a halfback compared to someone that has to move around from a formational standpoint, a la the receivers, but there's still a lot to learn, right? I mean, from a protection standpoint, he's obviously physically a very good protector. Now we got to teach him the scheme of it. He's a smart dude. We have no. We're not worried about him obviously picking that stuff up. But, I think generally speaking, people would say that, from a back perspective, but there is a lot more to it. And, whatever he's doing, we just want to help him, improve in all those phases.
When you consider everything you said earlier, you're in shorts, it's only field work, stuff like that. What are your initial impressions of Jeremiah in terms of how he moves and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, good. He moves well. So, again, there's not a lot of guys out there, and we were out there for quite a bit of time for not having a lot of guys, So being able to slow it down and understand kind of where these guys were again, it was an extension of the meeting room out there in some aspects, with also being active, So I told the guys this morning, I said, no one's making the team today. We're just getting acclimated for Monday. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean he moved well.
With meeting with Carson, what has kind of stood out to you?
His demeanor, I guess you could say, but that hasn't really stood out. I'm not shocked. He loves it. He loves just sitting there. He's a 24-year-old adult, and he loves ball. Obviously, we just got him in here yesterday. I wanted him to be with Schaub and Hackett a lot, so I stood in there for about 10 minutes. Then, sometimes it's better when I'm not in the room, so they can get into a little bit more nitty-gritty, and usually I just mess stuff up anyways in terms of talking about, God knows what. So, no, it's kind of what I expected.
With Carson, is it kind of nice to have a quarterback that was drafted in the third round, just because you can kind of let him develop at his own pace without having the pressure of being a first-round pick, that is supposed to impact right away?
Yeah, the pressure's real, but at the same time, once they're picked, you got to throw that to the side. You got to figure out what they can handle at any position, quarterback all the way to the defensive tackle. So I understand the outside pressure. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, hey, the first round's different than the seventh round. I understand that, but part of our job in this building is to say, hey, take all that away and let's develop them at the pace that they can develop. Let's make sure we have great urgency in the way that we coach them. They need to match that urgency back, because again, the clock starts now for all these guys. Because again, no one really cares at that point. You got to put the best 53 on the roster and the best 22 out there from a starting standpoint.
When it comes to the rookies and evaluating when they're going to be ready, do you have certain benchmarks throughout the offseason of, I'd like to see mentally them at this point, or footwork at this point? That way when you're getting to training camp, it's not like, do we think they're ready? Yeah,
no, it's a good question, and I think there's a lot of variables to it. I would say the word that came to mind as you asked that question is consistency. They're like, whether the vets in year one or even the rookies, there's going to be mistakes made. Can you not repeat that mistake? And then once you got that down, how consistent can you be? When we're out there, it's going to be pretty controlled initially, right? When we get out to OTAs and all that with scripts, and then in that first early parts of training camp. Once we get to about the middle of training camp, we get some joint practice, we get into the preseason, scripts kind of go away, and we got to play some real football. And I'm a big believer in that. We'll get the foundation in the starting point, those first 7-8 practices. But after that, I already told Nick, dude, we're going to go out there, we're going to roll the ball out, we're going to play some football and see what these guys know without kind of the cheat code, if you will. And that's what the preseason does as well. Scaled back, obviously, because you're not showing too much scheme. But that's, kind of in that mid-August, that's when you're really going to know who's getting ready or close to being ready.
Carson, having played in pro-style systems like you mentioned, how much can that either speed up or shorten his learning curve coming into?
Yeah, I'd say speed up or same thing right there. So it's not like he hasn't had attached tight ends. It's not like he hasn't been in 12 personnel. It's not like he hasn't been under center and done a play action fake or even take a snap from under center like a lot of guys haven't. So it's just, I would say the comfortability of playing under center, playing in the gun, playing with different formations, motions, and stuff like that. It's not the end all be all by any means. But definitely, if there was a tie, you'd say, yeah, I want the guy that's actually done some of that over the guy that hasn't.
You mentioned the 4 or 5 weeks that you've been here with some guys that were here for voluntary workouts. Any guys surprise you personality? You've seen these guys on tape, but meeting them, any guys surprise you personality-wise, kind of what they bring to the building?
I'm not even going to go person to person. I've been pleased with all these guys, and it's an everyday process getting to know these guys, Obviously, offensively, these guys are going to see me a lot as I'm running the meetings and stuff like that, teaching this offense to these guys, and then obviously being with them for most of practice right now for obvious reasons. The fun one for me is going into the defensive unit meetings and really starting to get to know these guys. Not that I didn't know that defensive personalities are different than offense, but they're different, and in a good way. And there's an energy when you go into a defensive meeting room and a unit meeting room. Everyone's dapping up. Sometimes I got to wake up the offensive guys, but that's everywhere I've been, And it's been pretty fun to see. And again, I look forward to getting to know these guys even more on that side of the ball.
What is your role on the defensive side of the ball?
Right now, just be supportive, learn the system with them, and then. I won't get into kind of the nitty-gritty, but I know there's different ways that I can help these guys when it comes to how we're going to work, our standard, how it looks, what good defense looks like away from scheme. But I'll keep that with us.
With the vets coming back next week, what's the latest on Jacoby and the conversation with him about his new play?
Ongoing, so everything's good from a dialogue standpoint. But like we said, this is voluntary, and so that's where we'll leave it.
With him not here, do you feel like you're behind the 8 ball at all?
He's played a lot of football, so we're in communication. He knows what the expectation is.
Going back to the defense, we saw you watching a little bit of the defensive line with Caleb Proctor. What intrigues you or excites you about having a guy that comes from an FCS school and trying to make this jump to the NFL?
Yeah, obviously the FCS, you're always going to, again, Ty goes to the guy that had the better competition, but ultimately you got to put that away, and some of his best games were against the really good competition in LSU and all that. So you just look at the traits. The thing that stood out to me about him was his play style. I said that about Chase from a offensive line perspective, and I see the same thing from him. So real excited to get working with him, and see what he brings to that room.
It's early, but
Danny, we'll make that the last one if you don't mind.
It's early, but now that you are around the players, how would you describe what your coaching style is, and if it kind of fits with what you were expecting it to be in order to connect with and earn the trust of the players?
I think it's probably a better question for them. Again, I just try to be myself every day, so I'm not going to change. They know that I'm going to speak truth to them because I don't know any other way. I'm not smart enough to lie. I truly mean that. So, again, I'm just trying to authentically be myself with these guys, teach them the system and answer the questions. And, sometimes there's going to be a little more energy than others, but, I don't set expectations on myself. So, but I answered too much on what I just said. I think it's a better question for them. So.
Coach, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Take care, y'all.